Aloha everyone. So it's been almost 4 months since Maui's mayor announced a proposal to eliminate short-term rentals in apartment zoning. Now, no one knows for sure whether or not that proposal will pass the county council, and even if it does pass, most people believe it will be overturned by lawsuits in our court system. One thing that we know for sure is that it's definitely going to be at least several months and possibly several years before we know the final outcome of this for sure. In the meantime, though, the uncertainty of the outcome alone is already affecting the property values of the short-term rentals in apartment zoning here on Maui. In this video, we're going to dig into the recent sales statistics to get a better idea of what is happening in that specific portion of our real estate market. We're going to look at whether or not STRs in apartment zoning are still selling at all. We'll look at the differences in sales prices for properties that were purchased before the mayor's announcement versus the properties that went under contract after the announcement, in order to get a better idea of what kind of discount these properties are currently selling for. And we'll take a look at the recent sales prices for short-term rentals that are in hotel/resort zoning. These are the properties that will continue to allow short-term rentals even if the legislation passes. So it's going to be interesting to take a look at the difference. There's lots of information here, so let's dive right into the data. I started by pulling a list of all the closed sales for Maui short-term rental condos that went under contract after the mayor's announcement. And then I highlighted the STRs in apartment zoning in yellow. At the bottom of the page, you can see the totals. There have been a total of 55 closed transactions that went under contract after the mayor's announcement on May 3rd, and out of the 55 total sales, 30 of these short-term rentals are in apartment zoning. So the apartment zoned STRs are definitely still selling. If we break it down by location of South Maui versus West Maui, we do see that most of the apartment zoned STRs that are selling now are on the south side. Okay, from here I wanted to study the difference in sales prices for STRs that went under contract before the proposal to eliminate them in apartment zoning versus the ones that went under contract after the announcement. The best way to do this is to look at comparable sales in each individual complex. Let's start on the south side with the Maui Vista condo complex in Kihei. The spreadsheet we're looking at now shows all the recent sales of one-bedroom units at Maui Vista, and the sold property highlighted in yellow is one that went under contract after the mayor's announcement. The unit sold for $629,000, and the previous sale, which was very comparable in size and view plane, sold for $725,000, and it closed before the mayor's announcement. This equals a difference of $96,000, or roughly a 13% discount. Now let's take a look at another South Maui STR in apartment zoning, but this time in Wailea. Wailea Ekolu actually had two similar properties go under contract and sell after the mayor's announcement, with the average sales price being $1.775 million. Compare that to the average sales price of the previous 4 similar properties in the community, which was around $1.83 million. This is a difference of just $61,000, or a discount of about 3%. I think what we will discover as we continue to collect more data is that it's going to be the more affordable properties that are hit hardest by the proposed short-term rental ban, because those owners are more reliant on the short-term rental income to cover all the expenses of owning the property. You'll find that the multi-million-dollar properties will have a higher percentage of people who purchase with all cash, so they don't have a mortgage expense to worry about, and they just have more resources to hold these properties even in challenging times. So now that we've looked at 2 South Maui properties that are in apartment zoning, let's take a look at what is happening at a property that's in hotel/resort zoning by looking at the recent sales at the Royal Mauian. The Royal Mauian had 2 similar sales after the mayor's announcement, again highlighted in yellow. The average of those 2 sales was about $1.96 million. And the previous 5 similar sales averaged about $1.88 million. So at this property, the sales prices actually went up almost 13%. Now, to be fair, this example could be a bit skewed because the two recent sales were both very nice condos in good locations, but I do think the more expensive hotel/resort zone properties on the south side will hold their value or continue their gradual appreciation. But what about the more affordable hotel/resort zone properties? Well, looking at Kihei Akahi as one example, they did have 3 different one-bedroom sales that went under contract after the mayor's announcement that averaged around $728,000. Compare this to the previous 9 sales in the community, which averaged around $790,000 and sold before the announcement. This is a more modest discount of about 8%. Again, I think this is further proof that the owners of the more affordable properties will be hit the hardest by the uncertainty that the mayor's proposal creates. Okay, so far, all the properties we've looked at have been in South Maui, in either Kihei or Wailea. But what about West Maui, which is more heavily impacted by the fires, and the new legislation could happen quicker there? Let's start with an apartment zone property by looking at Papakea Resort. There have been 2 different 2-bedroom sales that went under contract after the mayor's announcement, and when you compare them to the previous 2-bedroom sales, you see the sales price has come down more than 20%. When we compare that to the Kaanapali Shores, which is a community that's right next to Papakea, but it's in hotel/resort zoning, the sales prices there are holding more steady and showing a slight decline of about 5%. So to quickly recap, here's a spreadsheet of all the properties we discussed in this video. Now keep in mind that the sample size is still very small, so the numbers can be exaggerated, and we probably need more time to really establish a clear trend. But I still think this is very helpful information to be aware of. As of right now, what we're seeing is that the South Maui short-term rentals in apartment zoning are seeing discounts between 3 and 13%, with the more affordable properties seeing the larger declines. The South Maui properties in hotel/resort zoning are holding more steady, with some properties actually going up in value. On Maui's west side, there have been fewer sales, so less information to explore, but it's still clear that short-term rentals in apartment zoning on that side of the island are seeing the biggest price reductions at around 20%, while the STRs in hotel/resort zoning are holding more steady, but also seeing some lower sales prices, which is probably due to the reduction in rental income since the Lahaina fire. But what does all of this mean to you? Well, I think it's important to point out that these properties would still not be considered affordable workforce housing even after the reduction in sales price. And I think it's unfortunate and probably unconstitutional that Maui property owners are having to go through this at all. That being said, for the people that have been considering buying property on Maui, this could be an opportunity to buy at a lower price than you could have just 4 months ago because of this uncertainty. You definitely have to weigh the risk of the proposed legislation and decide for yourself whether or not you think it will pass and hold up in the courts. Or perhaps you're okay with the possibility that you won't be able to vacation rent your property in the future. For people who currently own STRs in apartment zoning on Maui, the good news is that you absolutely can find buyers if you want to sell. But you do have to price your property appropriately in order to get it sold in this market. Now, everyone's individual scenario is different, so I'm not going to give any generalized advice in this video, but if you are considering buying or selling and you want to hear my honest, unfiltered opinions on your particular scenario, well, you're going to have to reach out to me directly. You can either call, email, or text me, and we'll set up a time to do a quick 30-minute consultation, and I'll give you the unfiltered truth about what I would do if I were in your shoes. One more thing before we go, make sure to share this video with anyone you know that owns property on Maui or is considering owning property on the island, because it can be difficult to find reliable and up-to-date information about what is actually happening in our market. Subscribe for more updates. Hit the like button if you appreciate the time and energy it takes to pull all of this information together. And congratulations if you made it all the way to the end of this video. I know that spreadsheets and statistics aren't everyone's cup of tea. I hope to see you all in the next video. Aloha.